Genesis 22, Genesis 22, Genesis 22, Genesis 22. I want y'all to know, for those who don't follow me on Instagram, I had a great doctor's report on Friday, and so they said the recovery is going well. They told me I can start to put some pressure on my leg in moderation. I said, what about preaching? They said, you can't be jumping around and doing all that stuff, but they said I can do a little bit of pressure. So I start physical therapy next week. So y'all continue to keep me in your prayers, because that's the worst part. For anybody been through physical therapy? Come on, that is not Jesus. Let me tell you something. Jesus is not in physical therapy. So I'm looking forward to getting better, but I'm also not looking forward to the pain that accompanies it. Genesis 22. We'll be reading a good amount of verses, but I think they're going to help us today as we continue the last two installments of our Sandcastles series. Genesis 22, verse 1, it says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. Somebody say tested. Matter of fact, the inscription or the title or the heading of this particular passage, if you have a physical Bible, says, Abraham's faith tested. He said to him, Abraham, and here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain. Somebody say a mountain. That I will show you. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him two of his servants and his son Isaac. And when he had enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place at the distance. He said to his servant, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Somebody say, we will worship. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Verse 6, Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire in the night. Seems like a good deal to me. You carry all the heavy stuff. I'm going to carry the fire, and I'm going to carry the knife. And the two of them went on together. Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Abraham, Father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the two of them went on together. When they reached the place that God had told them about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. And he bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife and to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Then I know that you hear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up there in the thicket, and he saw a ram caught by its horns. This is where we get the phrase from, a ram in the bush. Somebody say a ram in the bush. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as an offering and said to his son, Abraham, instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day, it is said that on the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. It will be provided. I'm going to read a few more verses a little bit later. But for the moments that I'm going to talk to you today, we're going to talk about this central word, this key to our faith, called worship. Everybody say worship. Now, we've been talking in this Sandcastle series about the fact that whenever we are trying to build our faith, oftentimes we build it on some of the wrong stuff. We built it on ideals and principles and just thoughts that aren't true foundation. And so we walk through the foundation and how to build a strong foundation. We walk through how to build our faith. We walk through how to build a prayer life. We've had conversation about sin and what it means to our life, and not only how to be overcome by sin, but how to have solutions for sin in our life. And you can go see all those sermons on the website. But today, I want to look at another foundational principle of our faith. I want us to take a moment and talk about this word that we use all the time in church, particularly when the slow song starts, worship. We'd be like, let's do praise and worship. Praise is the every praise song. And then worship is this is the air I breathe song. You know, when the music slows down in the pack. Can you give me a worship chord? Where did he go? Can you give me a worship chord, Frank? Tell me where I'm going to need them. I need this worship chord. You know, worship, we come to church and we say it's time for worship. So worship is when, come on, give me my pad now. I'm waiting for my pad. You're pressing buttons. I'm waiting for my pad. Yeah. That's it. That's worship. Come on, look at your neighbor and say, time to worship. It's time to worship. Come on, it just sets the tone. And this is when we do altar calls, because worship is, worship is cool, because if you listen to any worship music now, you can really sing about anything, and it be worship, You just make up stuff like, who is like the Lord, seated on the throne. Come on, you feel it, right? He is exalted, lift him on high. And you only got to finish the word. This is worship. And so many of us keep playing for, many of us, this is our theology. Our theology is built on the idea that we're waiting for worship. It's the time for worship. Came to church for worship. When you get a little quill in your voice, remember? And then you sing stuff to yourself like, can you play the song? Can you do, there is power in the name of Jesus. Everybody falls out. Because it's time for worship. And I want to just completely break your theology today on what it means to worship. Because what's interesting is, when I read this scripture, it's the first time that the word worship is ever introduced in the Bible. The word worship does not appear until Genesis 22. So I figured if we're going to talk about this thing that we use all the time in church, it would be beneficial to go back to the time that it is first introduced. It's first introduced in Genesis 22. We see it here. It says that they went to worship. He says, for the first time the word introduced in the Bible says, we will go and worship. Now, this is interesting to me because there's no pad, and there's no strings, and there's no service, and there's no hands lifted, and there's no tears, and there's nobody foaming at the mouth of the altar. None of that is represented in the text. I'm just reading the Bible. The only thing that is represented is a key word that I want you to write on your paper, write in your notes, write in your phone today, because it's going to be an undertone and a bedrock to this entire concept of worship. It's not about the song. It's not about the slow music. The only time we see it in this passage is with the word sacrifice. Like worship is not a song in this passage. We see there are moments when psalms are written. David writes songs that are good for worship. But in this passage, worship is introduced to us in its origin without music and without the psaltery and harp and without singing. It is introduced to us through a different type of activity. It is introduced to us through the activity of sacrifice. And I started to ask myself, what if many of us are coming to church to worship, but God is saying, but the real worship I want from you happens on Thursday. The real worship I want for you is happening on Monday, but you're only looking for worship on Sunday. You're waiting for Bible study worship. Worship in this passage is found to be in the mode of sacrifice. Now, I think this is interesting because in the beginning when God talks to Abraham, he says to him something very interesting. He said, I want you to sacrifice your son whom you love. And this is going to mess up a few of us because right here, we're going to talk about worship being sacrificed. Let's just make sure we get this clear. It's not really a sacrifice if you don't love it. See, this is why Christianity is a little hard for people. Can we be honest? Can we just all be honest? I say people, all of us, right? Because we're good at giving God the stuff that we don't really love hard. It's only when we're asked to sacrifice the things that we love that worship gets hard. It's only when we're asked to sacrifice a relationship that we become so accustomed to that makes us feel so comfortable, the thing that we love, the friend that we love, the relationship that we love, the shoes that we love, the money that we love to spend, the places we love to go, the things we love to do. It's only when we are requested of us to sacrifice what we love that it becomes worship. It is worship when I'm willing to give out of that which I love. Here's why this is central, because when you understand the backdrop of Abraham and his wife Sarah couldn't have any children. And so God gives them children in a season of their life when it was a miracle. They said it couldn't be done if they were 100 years old, but they wanted somebody to carry on their bloodline. It was a big deal in this day and era that you had children of your own. And so here they are thinking it's never going to happen, and God gives them a miracle in the form of a child. So understand this. God asked him to sacrifice the very gift that he gave him. And so here's where many of us are. Can we be honest? Anybody ever got a gift from somebody? I know y'all ain't gonna say amen on that tail end, but just walk with me through this story. You got a gift from somebody that you really wanted, and you, when you saw it, you were so excited and you jumped up and you hugged them and you were just so appreciative. Come on, anybody ever had like a surprise gift and you just made the excitement? I mean, you just, oh my God, you embraced them and you were like, thank you so much. Oh my God, I'm so grateful for you. Like a phone or some technology or maybe a new TV, gentlemen. Like you got the flat-end string that you were looking for at the right size, and your wife surprised you with it. Like you got something that you were excited about. And in the moment, you were excited about the giver. But over time, the gift started to replace the excitement for the giver. So when you got the phone from them, you embraced them and you loved them, and all that day you called everybody and you said, girl, let me tell you something, this is the one. Girl, this is the one. Let me tell you what he did for me today. I walked in there and he was like, girl, I saw you post about this because I love you. I just wanted to, don't worry about it. It came out of my refund check. I got you. It came out of my monthly budget. This came out of my side money. Fella, she bought you the TV, you called your boys, you was like, yo, bro, I know we're supposed to meet up at Buffalo Wild Wings, but we gotta watch the game here today, bro. I got the 60-inch, bro. You got me to hold a Vizio. It's crazy. And you were excited about the giver. You bragged on the giver. You called everybody. You told everybody, man, this is what happened this week. I'm so excited about the giver. But over time, you would go to dinner, and now you're on the phone. And the giver is still there. But you're there, but you're not present. Because now the gift has become the thing you love more than the giver. Your woman walks in the house and you were excited that she got you the gift. And you were in love with her for the gift, but over time, she walks in and you don't even say anything to her because you're so in love with the gift. And the gift has occupied all of your attention. And you don't even have the time to stop because this game is too important. This series is too important. This series, this Netflix special is too important. And so now you become more in love with the gift that you don't even pay attention to the giver. I think it's interesting that God chooses to test him with the very gift that he gave him. And I think what God kind of wants us to understand about worship is that what's important about worship is that you're constantly aware that often many of us make things idols unintentionally. It's not, don't mean to. It's just, it becomes more and more comfortable to fall in love with the gift and to lose love for the giver. And so here it is, God is having a conversation with Abraham, because I always struggle with this. God, why would you test him with that? And God said, because this is the thing that he loved the most. Could it be that what God is really looking for some of us, he said, I want desperately to be the center of your affection again. I want desperately to be the thing that you crave the most again. I want desperately to experience the same level of intimacy and excitement again that was reflected when I gave you the gift of life, when I gave you the gift of hope, when I gave you the gift of peace, when I gave you a second chance, when that first time you realized that you couldn't have done it on your own, but thank God to Jesus Christ that he gave my life. So I was excited about the gift, but now I'm living this life and I don't even make time for the giver. I'm too busy for the giver. Okay, can we be practical for a second? I know I got the job without the right credentials. But now I spend more time trying to perfect myself on the job than I do trying to perfect myself for the giver. I know I didn't deserve a second chance in this relationship. I know I didn't deserve to get this degree. I know I didn't deserve to be in the position that I'm in. But now I'm more in love. I'm idolizing. I'm making an idol in my life out of something that was a gift. But I'm neglecting the giver. So here is God. God says, hey, I need you to understand that the heart of worship is not connected to just a song. It's connected to the fact that you have to be willing to sacrifice. But I don't want you to think that we don't worship when we're here, because I need you to understand that the sight of surrender is often different than the sight of sacrifice. I want you to understand the definition of worship. Definition of worship, one that I saw, is really key. It says to honor with extravagant love and extreme submission. To honor with extravagant, somebody say extravagant. Extravagant love and extreme submission. This is what God is trying to get from us. Extravagant love and extreme submission. It's crazy. So here's what I think is interesting. I want to help somebody today. I want to be extremely practical, because you might be asking the question today, well, okay, Vernon, if I'm going to do better with my worship, I got to identify where my worship is going right now. I want to let you know where you can find your worship. 3 places. Tap your neighbor, say 3 places. 3 places. Okay. The first one is your time. Your time. Oh, we go. You can't be preaching my sermon, man. You jumping ahead. That's my point 2. Your time. I love this quote by William Penn. It says, time is what we want most and what we use worst. See? Time is the thing we beg for more of, but we use the most inefficiently. Sometimes we waste time in conversations that don't deserve our breath. Sometimes we waste time in relationships that we know aren't edifying. Sometimes we waste time in positions that we know aren't where God has called us to be. Sometimes we waste time, and here's what I want you to understand today, that in order for us to worship God at the level that he's called us to, you have to get back to a place where you say, I want my time to be used in such a way that God gets the glory out of where and who I'm with and what I'm doing, because when I worship with my time, I come out better. Where is my time going? If you start looking at your schedule, I bet you'll start to see that you worship some things that you didn't realize that you worship. Man, I spent that many. Have you ever got off the phone with somebody and be like, man, we spent that much time on the phone? Every now and then, sometimes I look back at my call log and I click on the details tab and I see how long the conversation lasted. Now, we talked for 40 minutes about the Golden State Warriors, and I couldn't find 2 minutes to read a scripture. I was going to get more amens than that. That was kind of weak. I said, man, I was going to do this little prayer thing, but I couldn't do it, because, man, it's, work. It's crazy. But then on your lunch break, you talk for 35 minutes about what happened last night, and you can't change it, but God can. So where did I invest my time? That is a form of my worship. Here's the second one. He already preached his sermon for me. We're going to tag team this today. It's with our money. Oh, boy. See, it's interesting. Matthew 6:21 tells us this. Matthew 6:21 tells us this. It tells us that you can know where somebody's love is, or their treasure is, or where their heart is. And some of us will say that we love God most, but when our bank account statement comes at the end of the month, we've invested more into Kanye's empire than we have to God's empire. Beyonce drops an album with no notice, and we buy it instantly. She don't even got to promote no more, just today. And then the church folk gonna be like, you know, we got a single coming out, it's 99 cents this week, and some of y'all still gonna stream it. Come on, y'all, I don't want to say it. They still gonna stream it. They're like, you know, I got Apple Music. That's like the same thing, right? No, that's not. It's an investment. What do I want to see advance? Some of us will invest into new outfits every month for people who don't even remember we wore that last month. But then when we say give 10% to see the church go out and feed the community and change lives and to give through the church so it can do a great work, and we want to take 20 kids to 50 kids, and we want to feed 50 kids and then 100 kids, and you'll say, I don't got it, but you do. It's just what you worship. It's just what you worship. Your money will tell you what you worship. I don't got to tell you. I'm not going to run down the list. I'm just telling you, look at your bank account when you go home, and maybe you'll see what you worship. Maybe you worship H&M. Maybe you worship Starbucks. Some of y'all, I don't understand how you spend $50 a month at Starbucks and get a church $1 a week. Some of y'all got special cards. They know your name when you walk in. How you doing? It's ready. They be knowing you late for work. They be like, you usually here by now. It's a little cold. We'll make you late for work. Now, I'm not saying none of those things are wrong. Hear my heart. Hear my heart. I'm not saying you can't invest into yourself. I'm not saying that you cannot enjoy the pleasures of life. I'm not saying any of that. But what I'm saying is we often tell God he comes first. But the aspects of our life would say otherwise. Here's the last reason thing that you got to see, and I think Abraham helps us to understand this, getting back to the text, is our faith will show us what we worship. I said this at the onset of this particular series, that this was going to be a phrase that I came back to over and over again. God is more concerned with what you rely on than what you relate to. And I want to say that over and over again, because often one of the greatest challenges in our development, I believe, is what we rely on. It is not when things are going good that we have a problem with going to God. It's when life is going crazy that we really realize what we rely on, what our faith is built in. So we run to relationships that are unhealthy. We run to substances. We run to things. We run to ideals. And look, hear me. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things as an isolated issue. What I'm saying is you have to get to a place where you say there is nobody and no thing greater for my life than what God offers me. He gets my worship. He gets my sacrifice. My faith is rooted in him. And this is so significant because when we look at this passage, we understand that Abraham is in this interesting position that God is asking him to give something that he loves. And it says that his faith is being tested. Because your faith will always be tested when you feel like you have a sure thing and you sacrifice it for a maybe thing. Isaac is sure. I love my son. He's here. He's present. I can see him. I can touch him. He's sure. But this thing that God is asking me to do, he's asking me to go to a place I've never been before. He's asking me to take a 3-day journey. Go to a mountain. He didn't even tell him where the destination was. So he's asking me to have faith in a maybe thing and to sacrifice a sure thing. Some of us will leave this room today and there will be some things that we're like, they've been a sure thing in my life. That's been a place I can run to. That's been a place I can call on. And God said, but in this season, I'm calling you to a new place. And if your worship is going to another level, I need you to understand that there's going to be some things I'm going to ask you to sacrifice, not because they're bad within themselves. Here's the part I love. Isaac lived. He didn't take the thing away. He just wanted to see if he was a greater priority. For some of you, you're so afraid to lose it that you will lose God. And if you would ever trust God enough and place your faith in him, he said you might come out on the end. I said might. Because some of y'all going to be like, but Pastor, you said I was going to keep it. Oh, I worked out different for everybody now. But you might find that he gave you not only what you had, but even more if you would just do what he asked you to do. Where is your worship? Now, can we just walk through this story a little bit further? Because, so now Abraham is in this position where he's going to the mountain. And at this point, he's about to sacrifice something he loves. But something very interesting happens. I think what he says is critical. This word worship appears when he gets to the place where he's called to go, and he says to them, we will go up and worship, and we will return. Everybody see that? Verse 5. Can you put verse 5 up? Put verse 5 up. I don't want to make sure y'all see this with me. Verse 5 says, we will go and worship. But then he continues to say, and we will come back. Now, God just told you to sacrifice him. So what is your confidence building? Prove it to you again. He goes on to say, this is the interesting part too. Isaac asked him, what is stuff we sacrificing? And he says, God will provide. He hasn't seen the provision yet. But Abraham, I believe, had enough remembrance. He said, I've been here before. I've done this before. This is familiar. God asked me to move my family, uproot my stability, and move to another place before, and that turned out all right. And he gave me something I have been praying for, and he gave me something I have been crying about, and he gave me something where he took something away, and he did it before. And I think what God was trying to show him is Abraham, if you just trust me again. Abraham said, oh, I know how he operates. I know his nature. He wouldn't ask me to do this if he wasn't going to do something. So every now and then you got to get to a place where you say, God, I don't see it, but I trust you. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I trust you. My bank account doesn't reflect it, but I trust you. And if you could ever get to a place where you say, I don't know where it's coming from, but he will provide. I don't know what he's going to do, but I know he's going to do it. I know that he told me to sacrifice it, but we coming back. He has confidence. And here's what's exciting for me. Provision often doesn't meet you in the place of your surrender. It meets you at the site of your sacrifice. Okay, let me slow. He surrenders to God in one place. And it said the journey was 3 days long. Which means that the site of his surrender is different than the site of the sacrifice. Here's why church is sometimes dangerous for our worship. Because we come here to surrender. But sacrifice happens when we leave. Your surrender may happen on Sunday, but your sacrifice may happen on Wednesday. And you got to get to a place that you got to understand that some of us are frustrated with God. And here's why over and over again, I feel like our relationship with God never hits the climax that we're looking for. We never experience this level of intimacy or provision because we keep saying, God, I thought you were going to do it at the place I surrendered. So our theology is built on the fact that I lifted my hands and I sung the song with them there. And so then I thought I was going to leave and my bank account was going to be different. And some of us be checking our bank account in service like, oh, I felt that, Lord. Thought I just worshiped. This look the same. You waiting for everything that you've been praying for at the site of surrender. He said, but you haven't sacrificed yet. So you got to not only surrender, but then you have to take the journey of sacrifice. And when you arrive at the site of sacrifice, that's where provision is. All right. Can I help 5 people today? I'm going to preach this like I feel it. Y'all going to have to help me out. Y'all can't be quiet. This is the part that blessed me. Many of us keep looking for the bush and we're not looking for the mountain. I feel it if y'all don't. Here's the thing. We always telling people to look for a ram in the bush. But Abraham didn't look for a ram in the bush. Abraham looked for a mountain. Because when I find the site of sacrifice, God will put the bush. Okay, let me help somebody. You're looking for a bush in the wrong place. Stop looking for a bush and start looking for the sacrifice. Start looking for the mountain. And God said, when you get to the site of sacrifice, I'll start providing what you've been praying for. When you get to the site of sacrifice, I'll start doing the things you've been crying about. When you get to the site of sacrifice, I'll start blessing you beyond your expectation. But you're looking for a bush, and I'm trying to take you to a mountain. I wish I had 10 people just high five somebody next to you and say, I'm going to find my mountain. I'm going to find my mountain. Because when I find my mountain, I'm going to find my miracle. You keep looking for your miracle in a bush, but the miracle was that he found the mountain. And when you find the mountain, you got to come to the mountain saying, okay, I understand what's necessary. It's worship. It's going to require some sacrifice. Yeah, I may lose some friends, but I got a bush. I might lose some people, but I got the miracle. I might lose some comfort, but I got the miracle. I might lose some stuff that I held on to, but I got the miracle. If you get to the mountain, you might get the miracle. He finds the provision. It says the Lord will provide. But he doesn't find the provision where he surrendered. He found the provision where he had to sacrifice. Where is God calling you to go? And what is he calling you to lose? And while you're worried about what you're going to lose, you're missing out on what he's about to bless you with. You say you want to be an entrepreneur. You have an idea that's going to be groundbreaking. You want to change the world. And you keep saying, God, okay, I'm in this thing with you. I know you called me to do this. And God said the problem is not with your vision. The problem is with your location. Because you're still at the same place looking for a bush that's not there. The bush is waiting for you at the site of sacrifice. So, okay, you got the vision. Now, what are you going to sacrifice for the vision to be made reality? You got the marriage you've been praying for. I just need, Lord, I just need a man. Just one man. Lord, just give me the man, Lord. Just, I've been praying, Lord. I've been, just bring me somebody, Lord. I'll compromise on what they look like at this stage of my life. Just long as they love me, long as they show up, long as they can provide, long as they got credit, long as they... Okay, Lord, don't worry about the credit score. Lord, just give me one. I take student loan debt. I can deal with that, Lord. Just... give me somebody who love me, Lord. Just. And then you get the marriage, but then you don't want to sacrifice nothing. So now you got, we want so much, and God said, but when you get there, you got to be willing to have a heart of sacrifice. That's what worship really is. Worship is about sacrifice. It's about sacrifice. Here's the last piece, though. I want you to see this with me because I thought this was good to me. I can't tell y'all that. Maybe because I had like a month to work on it, y'all. I've been sitting at home on the couch. So I was just preaching to myself at the house. Like I'm sitting on the couch with my leg up like, boy, just get to the provisions. I'm just excited. Don't worry about me. Here's what I think is interesting, y'all. Can we just teach a little bit and I'm be done? Now, they get to this site. This is funny to me because sometimes y'all read the Bible too serious. Can we just be practical for a second? Isaac is with his dad. Just walk with me on this for a second. Sam, they've been on this journey for 3 days now. But it would seem that Isaac doesn't really know what's going on. Walk through the text with me. How do I know that? Well, the story tells us that when they get to the place where they're about to walk up to the mountain, he asks Daddy a very critical question. Hey, Your pop. The fire's here. Wood's here. What we sacrificing? Like what's going down there? I know you're here because God said something got to die. I'm just trying to figure out what it's going to be. You know? And here's why I would have been mad. I know y'all real spiritual. Y'all know God got to play Abraham as anointed. He said what God told him. Y'all can be all that y'all want to be. If I'm Isaac in the flesh, Abraham lied to me. He said, this is what Abraham said to him. The Lord will provide. No, make that crap. Don't that sound like some churchy stuff to say to somebody in the midst of a difficult time? Something about to die today. What's going on? The Lord will provide. And then you find out a little while later that you're the one supposed to die. Wait. When we were at the bottom of the mountain, I asked you who was supposed to die. Okay. I'm just saying, that's what I read. And then, if that wasn't enough, I'm looking at verse 8. He says, God himself will provide the lamb for the offering. And the two of them went on together. Then it says, when they reached the place that God told them about, Abraham built the altar, arranged the wood on it. Verse 9, right? Then it said he bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar. Now, got to give you a little background. Abraham doesn't have Isaac until he's about 100 years old. But we also know that throughout theological learning that we can't pinpoint an age for Isaac. But you would assume that Isaac is a little boy. Naive, maybe. You know, hey, boy, lay down on the altar. Okay, Daddy. Okay, Daddy. Do you love Daddy? Yes, I do. Okay, don't you want to lay down on the wood? Yes, Daddy. And Isaac is like this little boy who's naive. But when theological studies have been done, they've concluded that Isaac was probably between his late 20s and mid-30s. See, y'all too churchy. That's a problem. Now listen to this now. Let's dig this thing out before we close this thing. So, you trying to tell me that you over 100 years old and I'm in my prime and somehow you overpowered me to put me on the altar? No. I want to know what happened between verse 8 and verse 9. Because I don't know, I promise you there's some stuff not in the text. Ain't no way we going to get up to this mountain and you going to tell me, hey man, not the way I want to tie you up, man, I'm going to kill you. Wait, say what? Wait, what? What? Me? There got to be a conversation. I love you, Daddy. But you got to explain some stuff to me. Which suggests to us that if he was in his prime physical condition and Abraham was old in age, that Isaac had to make a conscious decision to be a part of the worship experience and not be forced into it. That's just my assumption, because I don't know too many 100-year-olds that can overpower a 30-year-old. Which leads me to believe that Isaac didn't just go on the journey, but he was also a part of the worship. Okay, so when I was at the doctor on Thursday, I'm going to bring this home, because I think Isaac shows us something. Watch this. I think he understood something that maybe I understood at a young age that I didn't know I understood. But when I was at the doctor on Friday, it was interesting. My doctor came in and he has like an apprentice now. My surgeon in particular has been doing my surgeries for 19 years. And so I've had the same surgeon for all these years, and he's getting older. And so he's about to transition out. And he said to me, he said, hey man, this is one of my apprentices. And so the apprentice came in the room and we're having this dialogue, and he sits down and he's by himself. The doctor goes out, my doctor, Dr. Foster. And so he's in the room and he says, yeah man, Dr. Foster tells me y'all been working together for a long time. I said, well, if you want to call it that. And I just kind of lay, he cuts, I wake up. Guess you can call that working together. I pay him, he's happy. Working together. I don't get nothing from physical health. He looking real good right now. So, it was interesting. He said, he tells me this story about when you were young and you had made up in your mind that you were going to play basketball again, even though they told you would never walk again. He says, man, I remember him telling me that they told you that you would never walk without a walker and that you would never be able to run or jump, but yet you kept saying at 10 and 11 and 12 that you were going to play basketball again. You were going to play basketball again. You were going to play basketball again. He said he thought you were crazy. I cannot make this up. This is what he said to me, though. And this is the apprentice talking. He said, but the other thing he said was most strange. He said he expected that from you because you were a child. He said what messed him up is, he said he will often be talking to your father. And your father believed that you were going to achieve it too. He said he remembers talking to your father and your father being like, yeah, that's what my son's going to do. Yeah, that's what he's going to achieve. Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Yeah, we believe he can do it. And he said he was always shocked by the fact that he expected that type of faith from a child, but not from a parent. And I stopped him and said, I need you to understand something, that you got the story wrong, and maybe he does too. He says, you think that he had one faith and I had another. But what I need you to understand is that I grew up in a household with a father who was crazy enough to believe he could do anything. And so because I saw his faith, it informed my faith. Okay, let me help somebody. And you got to understand that there's some people waiting on you to have a big enough faith so that their faith can grow. Here's what I believe happened to Isaac. He said, I talked to my daddy and he said, we will worship and we coming back. And then I asked him again, what's about to happen? And he said, the Lord will provide. And so I believe that Isaac said, hey, what I understand now is that my daddy's not crazy. He just knows what God is capable of. So I'll be a part of the worship experience because I know if I sacrifice the way my daddy did, then maybe I'll get some of the blessings that my daddy did. And I need somebody to understand today that you're waiting on somebody else, but somebody's waiting on you to increase your faith. Somebody's waiting on you to increase your worship. Somebody's waiting on you to make some sacrifices. And when they take note, you're going to empower them in a way that your words never could. They're waiting on you. They're waiting on you. They're waiting on you to have enough. Abraham's faith informed, I believe, Isaac's faith. He said, Daddy, you know what? You did this before. You walked with him before. You followed him before. You trusted him before. So if it worked out for you, then you know what? I trust you. I trust your testimony. I trust what you say is possible. And there's some people around you in your community and in your job and in your school and all around you every day who are waiting on you to start declaring some things with faith. See, worship is not an isolated activity. This is the first time worship appears, but it says at the heading that his faith is tested. Which means that God will often, to increase my worship, increase my faith. And today there's some people in this room that you got to understand that when you increase your faith, there's going to be some people around you. There's going to be some people that are watching you. There's going to be some people following your timeline who are going to say, I didn't know it was possible. But I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to take the jump. I'm going to take the leap because I heard you say he will provide. I heard you say he'll come through. I heard you say that he can make a way. In a world that's full of people saying what we can't do, imagine how much of a contrast to culture you would be to start saying what he can do. What can he do? That's what worship really is, y'all.